I don't know how well. Primary arms, I'm sorry, but I did tell you I was going to do a torture test.
Coming right there.
Hey gents, welcome back to Tactical Rifleman. Hey, a little while ago, I did a video on this great scope here. This is a 1-to-8 power, first focal plane made by Primary Arms. It's their Platinum series. It's called the Raptor ACSS. The big thing's the reticle in it. It's cool. It's made by a guy I met through them named Dimitri. He designed some great ballistic, basically bullet drop compensating reticles. It's awesome. I did the video and it's great for targets that are 5'10" with shoulders about as wide as mine. It's hard to find a lot of mammals like that in the 3-gun competitive world, the hunting world. So me personally, I'm like, as far as for combat, this is a great scope, but what about for the rest of us, right? Now, because I'm a fag, I'm a former action guy, not going into gunfights anymore. I still have that potential to do that, right? So I still want a gun that I can fight with, but at the same time, I was looking for a scope that was more along the lines of somebody, 3-gun competitive, guys doing precision rifle, but wanted a scope that they could dial all the way down to 1 power, go all the way up to 8 power magnification. It's a great scope. But I still like having that mill grid that I used to run in the military, the horse vision that has that mill grid. I like having that mill grid. And that was my only complaint about it. And Dimitri said, well, Carl, why don't you try the Griffin? What's a Griffin? Hence, Dimitri sends me the Griffin. This is still the Platinum series. It is 1-to-8 power. And this thing, well, the only difference is what it says on the side. It says Griffin on the side. No, first quick glance through the reticles look very, very close to each other, except that this one has actually got a full mill grid underneath. Now, I love this thing. I do. I love the hell out of this thing. And because I like it, I know a lot of y'all first question is going to be, well, Carl, where do we get it? Go to tacticalrifleman.com. I have a link there that will take you straight to Primary Arms to buy this. And if you use that link coming from us, they'll throw in this, this scope mount that's made by Aero Precision. It's a good scope mount. This will be the mount that comes with this scope when you buy this. Again, guys, it's a great scope. What makes it so great? I appreciate you guys asking. First off, all their Platinum Series scopes have good glass that's made in Japan. This is not a Chinese-made scope. Now, they have some of their lines of Silver Series. Same great reticle, but it's their ACSS reticles on the Silver Series is a scope that's made in China. The Platinum Series are made in Japan. It's good Japanese glass. It's first focal plane. Why is that important? It's important because I like having that mill grid in it so that when I do my ballistic calculations on my phone, that app on my phone, I like the Applied Ballistics, or if you're an older guy and you're running the Horse A-Trag or Straylock, whatever ballistic program you're running, when it gives you that holdover for, let's say, that 600-meter target, it comes out to 1.2 mils. You know you've got exact mill grid underneath to, I need to hold exactly 1 mil and then 0.2 mils. Perfect. On a second focal plane scope, when you change magnification, that grid is no longer set, right? That you're only getting that with first focal plane, and that's important. Now, the ACS Griffin versus the Raptor. A lot of the features in it are the same. To begin with, you still got your big red circle when you're dialed all the way down onto 1X, which is great. Think of it as that donut of death in the EOTech that you guys know I love. So on 1X, you've still got that for speed, for finding your reticle real quick, and then you've got the fine chevron in the middle, which dialed all the way down to 1 power is just like that little dot in the EOTech. Right, so for CQB distances, it's perfect. The added benefit of this is now when you dial it all the way up in magnification, whether you're going 6 power, 8 power, and this goes all the way up to 8 power, you've got that mil grid down there for those shooters that have that ballistic programs and they want to do exact holdovers, right? It goes side to side for windage and elevation. Awesome, big deals. Now, you get basically 15 mils total. That's a lot, guys. You can reach out way past 800 meters with 15 mils. Now, I'm not a BDC guy. You guys know that. I like being able to dial exactly. So if you are a BDC guy, I'm going to steer you towards the Raptor because it is built specifically on the BDC, the bullet drop compensator. Now, that said, if you are running the Griffin and you need to do snap shooting, targets all of a sudden popping up from 100 meters to 300 meters to 400 meters, it still has the basic BDC running down the center so you can still do your snaps and movers. Quickly swing it over, go width of the center stadia line to width of the guy's shoulders, line it up so it's a correct width, roll through that trigger, and you're sending bullets downrange. So I'd more steer the Griffin towards snipers, guys that want to use those exact ballistic calculations. If you're a BDC guy, I'm going to steer you back towards the Raptor. Now, I mentioned the BDC. So if you're doing range estimation, and that's the hardest thing for guys to get down on the battlefield. When you're doing range estimation, it's basically built off of a 18-inch width for basically the width of a guy's shoulders. So line up either that 300 meter mark, 4, 5, 6, the width of the guy's shoulders, and you're golden. Now, it's also full height on the side ladders in the reticle. So line up the side reticle. It's built for a guy that is 5 foot 10 inches tall, kind of common on certain parts of the planet. Top of the head to the base of his feet, read the number next to it. 6 down to the feet, the guy's 600 meters away. If you can't see the whole guy, you go from his waist to the top, cut it in half. If from the waist to the top says 600 meters, or says the 6, the guy is 300 meters away, bottom of the chevron, roll through the trigger. Nice and easy. Now, if you want exact measurements, let's say you don't have somebody out there that is 5'10". All you have is, let's say, the height of the tire or the height of the water tank up on top of the building, or for our 3-gun shooters or our sniper competitors, the exact height or exact width of those steel plates that you're shooting at. Let's say it's the 12-inch steel plates throughout the whole thing. You can use the worm formula, measure it with your mil grid because it's perfect because it's first focal plane. Use the worm formula, and even if your laser rangefinder goes down or that particular stage in the competition you're not allowed to use the laser rangefinder, you can still use the worm formula and you can calculate exact distances to target. That's important, guys. Now, as far as winds, the Raptor has 5 mile an hour and 10 mile an hour wind dots going off to the side. That's a great feature. I like that. I got that. Why didn't they add that on the mil reticle? The same reason why I don't like it in some of the Tremor reticles, because the mil grid is there, but you start adding all these additional lines, it gets too cluttered, too busy, and you start to lose track of stuff. When you're holding for winds out at long distance, I want to make exact wind calls using my ballistic formula, and then I've got my mil grid in the Griffin where I can hold exact wind hold. So I don't need my wind dots per se. It's important. Now, it does have the same dots to the left and right for movers. That is built for a guy 8.6 miles an hour. In other words, this guy is sprinting from left to right or right to left. You've still got your big dots in the Griffin for doing that. All right. Now, as far as mounting it, guys, it's like mounting any other scope. Make sure that it's level. Set it up so that you've got proper eye relief. Now, for the old guys like me, once you take off that rear scope cap, you can adjust ocular focus to adjust for your eyes. If you've got astigmatism, anything like that, you can focus it so that the reticle is crystal clear for you. All right, now, I'm going to get in a bunch of other features, but before I do, I'm looking here at my trusty clock, and I've got to give a slight delay so that YouTube can toss a commercial in here because I'm long-winded. I'll see you guys here in just a minute. All right, we're back. I just talked about adjusting the ocular lens focus here so that the reticle is crystal clear. Adjust it to your eye. Guys, this is your scope. Now, after that, one thing I do want to note, now this scope does not have a knob for adjusting parallax. What do I mean by that? Some of your higher magnification sniper scopes, you can actually dial so that the target and the reticle focal planes are identical, so it doesn't matter if your head is left, right, up, or down. The scope is considered parallax free. You do not have that point of adjustment on this scope. Why that's important is when you get that good cheek weld to shoot, you have got to get your head behind the gun the exact same place every time. You put your head left or right, raise it up or down, you're gonna throw off the point of impact of the round. That is not just specific to this scope, that is the same with almost all hunting scopes, almost all of your low-powered military scopes also. Whether you're shooting the Vortex, Night Force, whatever, you're gonna have that same problem. But this knob on the left side of the gun is actually an illumination knob. Right, you've got all your different settings on it, of brightness to very, very dim. I like that it has auto off between each one. So if you don't, in other words, you don't have to come all the way back to 0. You pause between the 4 and the 5 and it turns off. You pause between the 5 and the 6 and the reticle turns off. It is awesome. Now, this is not a locking knob, and it is on the left side of the gun. People call this the left side of the gun. I don't call this the left side of the gun. I call this the side of the gun that is rubbing on my kit as I'm patrolling. The disadvantage of not having a locking knob here is I bump it on the front of my body armor, front of my magazine pouches, and those knobs always seem to get turned on. Overseas, I never ever had a illuminated reticle work for me. It's fine, it doesn't matter if the battery's dead, because with the battery turned off, that chevron is still black. The loop is still, your halo of death is still black. So you can still bring it up even though the battery is dead in this thing, and that's a great feature because that reticle is actually etched into the glass. A down point, yes, but honestly guys, that is the only gripe that I have with this thing. Now, when you get into zeroing it, because the Raptor is based on the bullet drop compensator, you have to be very specific about what ammo you're running through it. If you're doing 5.56, for example, a 62 grain zero is different than a 77 grain zero. So basically, the one, they might want you a ½ inch higher. You might zero at 100 instead of 50. They give you a great table so that you're zero, so the BDC is correct. It's really not that important when you're zeroing the Griffin here because, again, you're using the mil reticle. Now, they still give you guidance. For example, when I zeroed this for 7.62, you zero a ½ inch high at 100 meters. That puts that center BDC still very, very accurate. When we first started running this gun and testing it, and I've been beaten on this thing for quite a while, I started off running it with Black Hill 77 grain, 5.56, obviously, running it through a 16-inch heavy barrel on one of my ARs. Right? I was running 110 grain supersonics and 208 grain subsonics through my 300 Blackout. But where I found I just love this thing is on my Adams Arms. This is a 308. It's a 12.5 inch 308 pistol. Yeah, I love the ATF, I really do. But this is, again, I've been running 178 grains. I've been running 155 grains. I've been running cheap 7.62, expensive 7.62, everything down from my 110 grain VMAXs that I hand load for 3-gun season, all the way up to 178 accurate AMAXs and everything in between. This thing runs accurate, and the cool part about it is because it's a mil reticle, no matter what kind of ammo I put through it, so long as I run it through the chronograph, and plug it into my ballistic calculator, my data is correct at distance. So we started off for the final test that we ran with this thing. So we chronographed this thing at 2380. Now that doesn't sound high, but you got to remember it's 7.62, but it's also only a 12.5-inch barrel. 2380 is more than enough speed to push this bullet out there. We plugged it into our ballistic calculator and we are off and running. All right, so how do you test this? Do you just do it for accuracy? Do we just do our fortune cookie tests like we did with the Raptor? I want to do a little more with this one because I really wanted to stretch out and try all the different features. So what do I need to test, right? I need to test the BDC because that's kind of his selling point, that even though it is a mill reticle, for those that just want the horse or another mill reticle, it still has the ballistic, the bullet drop compensator feature. So I got to test that. So we had to test that for accuracy. All right, but some guys also dial their data. So we had to do the same thing. How well does this thing track? So we had to run we had to do that. We had to test the tracking because that's what a lot of guys are going to ask. Hey, Carl, I shoot competitively, I shoot 3 guns, but I dial my data for each shot. How well does it track? Got to test that. What else? I had to test speed for doing CQB. So I've actually been running this in a lot of our pistol carbine classes. Now, if I'm making the times with a 308 rifle with a variable power scope, well, everybody else is running 5.56. If I'm making the times on the drills, the students should be also, right? Okay, let's put it to the test. We also ran it for accuracy for hunting. So in other words, you don't know the exact distances. We went out and we did random testing. So accuracy for hunting, we've got to test that. I wanted to test speed and accuracy at the same time for all my 3-gun competitors. I like to shoot the MGM Ironman. I like to shoot the Rockcastle Pro-Am. I actually shot the Raptor in the Rockcastle Pro-Am last year. It did kind of bite me in the tail a little bit because I had the BDC, right? So the final test of it was, all right, bullseye testing, right? But I also wanted to do a torture test on it. How durable is this thing? So it's not so much just testing just the reticle. I kind of torture tested this thing the same as I would have done with the Raptor if I'd given a little bit more thought. All right, so let's see how this thing did in the test. But before we do, I'm gonna give YouTube another opportunity to slap you right in the face with another commercial. I'll see you when you get back. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that commercial as much as I did. I love these things. That's the only reason why I come to YouTube is for the commercials. All right, so we were talking about testing this thing, because I wanted a real test. So we start at the top of the list. So I wanted to test the BDC for accuracy. So we got out, all right, and you can look at the BDC graphic. All right, now you'll see that it's got down the center, it's got width of the shoulders, and you can go down and you can get 400, 500, 600 yards. All right, let's put it to the test. So we went out, we zeroed it, we zeroed the 308. Now, because of the ammo we were shooting in 308, to make the BDC line up according to the manual that comes with it, you zero at 100 yards, not meters, you zero at 100 yards, half an inch high. Okay, fine, no big deal. That sounds easy enough. We did it. Kind of nice having a 220 meter range in your backyard, Carl. All right, so we went out and we shot bullseyes with this thing at distance. All right, we actually lined up each line, known distance. We lased it and actually shot it at 400 yards, 500 yards, and 600 yards. All right, guys, so it was close, all right? If it was a full torso size target, shooting at those distances, all you would have to do is bring this up, lay it on a target that distance, roll through the trigger, and you would be on a torso size target, and that's the intent of the BDC. It's not designed to be tack driving. So, all right, fine, we're good. We're gonna move on to the next one. All right, now for the guys that dial, a lot of your competitive shooters, especially 3-gun, they dial that top knob. So if it says I've got I need to hold half a mil up, the guys would actually unlock the turrets. This thing's got locking turrets, and they would dial up half a mil, lock it back down, and then they would engage using the center stadia line. Okay, how well does it track? So what we did was we actually, I put this puppy in a vise. I locked it down, weighed it down, and then what we did was we marked on the wall. I had Chad go out and actually put a mark with the magic marker where it is, and I moved it up 1 mil. And then I had him mark again. I moved it up another mil, had him mark it. What it allowed us to do was go back and measure the distance between all of those marks to see if they were true. Because when you start talking, a lot of people know what I talk about when I say, does it track true? When you start dialing knobs, you gotta remember, this is a threaded column, basically a bolt moving, right? You're moving this turret up and down, that pane of glass that has that reticle etched on it. As you dial your elevation knob, you're moving that tube up and down that has that pane of glass in it, that lens, right? So as you're dialing it, if there's even the slightest burr or slightest unevenness in that threading, the scope will not track true. It won't. It'll track, it'll curve to the side. One mark may be closer to the other. Now, you won't notice it because, well, the bullet was a little low, the bullet was a little high, the bullet was a little left, bullet was a little right. You might think, well, my windage was off or my elevation estimation was off, where reality is you held true, but you're dialing on a scope that doesn't track true. That's what threw you off. Okay, now, this is the Platinum series. So this thing, I'm promised, is gonna track perfect. We put it to the test, put it in a vise, tracked it up and down for elevation, tracked it left and right for windage. It tracked true. It did. I wanted to complain. I wanted to catch them, screw it up. They didn't. The thing tracks true. Why is that important? I don't dial. I usually do holdovers. But if I was sitting somewhere in that sniper hide site, let's say, and I've got all the targets running back and forth at a alleyway that's at 460 meters away, I will dial that distance off my ballistic data. Perfect, so then I can just run the center stadia line. So I have dialed for elevation in combat. I have. My SR-25, my Leopold Mark IV was a 3.5 to 10 power, and we would dial for those exact distances. So I have used dialing in combat. It works. I just would prefer not to do it, but if I had to do it, I need a scope that tracks true, and this one does right here. All right, so we're gonna get into speed for CQB. I ran this thing, I ran the whole gamut of CTEs, our critical task evaluations, everything from doing up drills, from the high ready, low ready, transition drills, check drills, all those, even rifle now drills, rifle pistol El Presidente, switching shoulder drills. I did all that with this scope. Yes, it adds a little bit more weight to the gun. Yes, I did it with a 308. I also did this with the scope mounted on my smaller ARs also, because that's the cool part of running this, and it's not one caliber specific. You can buy one scope and you can mount it on your 300 Blackout. You can buy one scope and mount it on your 5.56. Right, so for the CTEs, dial it all the way down to 1 power, run it up. Is it as fast as an EOTech? No, it is not. It's not. A EOTech is gonna be faster than a variable power scope. It just is. Are there blind spots? Yes, if you don't bring the gun up perfect, whether you're pieing off behind a barricade, under a vehicle or something, sometimes you have to hunt to find the center of the tube. Does it have parallax? Yes, it does, but at CQB distances, inside 50 meters, fighting around a parking lot, you can deal with it. Now, if you've seen my video on backup iron sights, what I like to be able to do is, if my EOTech, let's say I forget to turn on the reticle, or heaven forbid the battery dies, I can quickly reach up, hit that button, and flip up that front sight post. I can then look through my EOTech and just use that front sight post, and I'm basically using it just like I'm running pure iron sights. Very, very fast. You can't do that with a variable power scope. You can't do that simply because the front lens, even though it is dialed down to 1 power, it is too close to that front sight post, and the front sight post is blurry. So if you're gonna run a variable power scope, let that sink in, because running straight backup iron sights like I have here, if this scope dies, the intent is to take this off the gun and basically run just iron sights. If you want a set of backup iron sights that you can run with this, you're gonna have to go with 45-degree offsets, either left or right. I've seen guys run both. All right, so is it fast? Yeah, it's still fast. Is it fast enough for CQB? Yes. If you're that designated marksman on the team, you can run a variable power scope. It does bring a lot to the fight. It does add weight to the gun, especially if you're running a small 308 like this puppy is right here. How about accuracy for hunting? All right, so again, I plugged in all the data for my hunting ammo and stuck it in my phone for applied ballistics. Now, running the Kestrel wind meter, I'm running my, my SIG laser rangefinder, and again, it's got applied ballistics in it. My Kestrel's got the applied ballistics in it. I like using the one off my phone out there, used it. Now, how do you test this without actually going out and slaying animals? Do I wait for deer season to come back around? I'm not sure you guys want to wait that long. So what I did was we went out to the same farm where I hunt. It's a farm that's in my family's, owned by my family. We went out there and we brought the LaRue knockdown target that's battery powered, and we placed it out where the deer usually pop up, where I have shot deer in the past. And were we able to get those first round hits? Yeah. I basically sat the target down and then I walked around, and every so often I would turn and I'd knock the steel plate back down. Cool part about that LaRue is battery powered, the target popped back up, saved me a lot of walking back and forth. So for hunting, guys, this thing's awesome. It really is. This is gonna be, I'm pretty sure this is gonna be my new favorite hunting scope. Here's an added benefit of having the Griffin over the Raptor or a lot of these other scopes is I like to shoot a lot of suppressed 300 blackout. Now, 300 blackout as opposed to 300 supersonics. The 300 supersonics run clean. You can have a small holdover, small grid, maybe a couple of marks like a lot of other people offer. But if you're running subsonics, you need a lot of grids. Remember, I mentioned this thing has 15 mils in the reticle. That allows me to run subsonic rounds, throw that 220 grain football, and still get 150, 200 meter shots with it. All right, I've got a couple more tests I want to talk about, but again, YouTube's shaking their arms up in the air at me saying, Carl, let's have another commercial because we want to give you a dime and we want to make 90 cents. So we're going to break for a commercial. I'll see you guys back in a minute. Awesome for hunting. I can't say enough about this thing. If you're a sniper and you're getting ready to run overseas, even if you don't like the Platinum Series and your unit's gonna go with Leopold or Smith & Bender, you need to tell them you want the ACSS Griffin reticle in your scope, because I'm here to tell you this puppy's awesome right here. What about the rest of us? What about our guys that aren't deploying overseas? What about our guys that are doing like 3-gun matches? Remember, I said this one didn't exactly serve me well at the Rockcastle Pro-Am. The Raptor was good, great glass, accurate, but kind of hard to estimate. Now, the funny thing about 3-gun matches is you can go to the stage ahead of time and you can laze all those long-range targets ahead of time, and you can make little cheat sheets. I actually put them in my quarterback playbook. I wear on my arm, and I know my exact holdovers. Kind of easy to do when you've got a mil grid. You can just write down the numbers to hold, look down real quick, hold in the scope, roll through the trigger. With the BDC, I couldn't do that. I had to actually draw little drawings of the reticle and then put where it needed to be. So that kind of bit me in the tail a little bit. So for speed and accuracy for 3-gun, me and Chad, we set up a couple basically long-range 3-gun stages. We calculated it, we lased it, and I made a cheat sheet, and we ran it for time. We ran it for time twice. The first time we shot it, we dialed with the knobs, just like all the pro competition shooters do. They dial to what it is, and then they pull the trigger. We dialed first, shot it for time, and then we dialed it, the second time we shot it, same targets, knowing the exact same data, using our ballistic calculator, and I've already got my cheat sheet made, just like I would at a 3-gun match, except the second time we did it just using the holdovers in the Griffin reticle. Same number of targets, exact same data, win holds were next to nothing that day. How much faster was it? How much slower was it? Using the Griffin, doing holdovers, I cut 12 seconds off the time by just doing holdovers. Now, 12 seconds does not sound like a lot for 3 known distance targets, but in a stage where, let's say one 3-gun shooter is just a little bit faster with his pistol, and he can shave 0.3 of a second off of my time because he's a little faster with that tricked out STI. He's a little faster with his competition shotgun that's been tricked out by Terran Tactical, and he shaves half a second there. That puts him 3/8 of a second faster than me. But if on the long range steel targets, I can cut 12 seconds off of him with his holdovers. Guys, that's the difference between going to the prize table in 90th place and going to the prize table in the top 10. All right, so I just want that to sink in. It's a big deal, right? So our final test for this thing. Let's see how tough this thing is. We decided to do a torture test this time. We didn't do with the Raptor. Right, so how to do a torture test. You guys remember, I'm a big fan of the EOTech. Now, EOTech got the big contract back for SOCOM because there are the issues that EOTech had before with the holdovers, losing, for thermal drift rather, for if the weapon got too hot in the trunk of the cop car, it would throw off the zero of the gun. Okay, so let's run it to test. So what we did was we went back to the 100-yard line, reconfirmed 0 with it, put it right there, shot a group on the target. We then took just the upper of the gun because my my oven's not that big, and I put it in the oven and I set it at 260 degrees. Let the oven get up to temperature, put it in there. Guys, there's not a cop car trunk on the planet in San Antonio, Texas that gets over 260 degrees. If there is, man, that cop's not getting paid enough. Took it out, oven mitts, by the way. Took it out with oven mitts, pushed my 2 pins back on. The added benefit of not putting the stock into the oven is it was nice and easy on my face. And like I said, I've got my rifle range in the backyard of my house. Took it out, quickly dropped back down, shot off the exact same sandbag. Check the zero change at all. So heating up and cooling down rapidly, the springs and mechanisms inside this thing, I didn't have any shift heating it up to 260. What about going in the opposite direction? Cool part about living where I live and being able to slay all of God's creatures, deer, stuff like that, I've got a whole chest freezer that I can store meat in. It's also big enough to hold a whole rifle. So what we did was we put the rifle into the freezer and we left. Actually forgot about it. We came back a few days later, pulled it out of the chest freezer. It's below freezing. Guys, that right there is a frozen gun. You want to test the optic for being frozen? I don't know how well. Primary arms, I'm sorry, but I did tell you I was going to do a torture test. Adam's arms, thank you for giving me the toughest 308 gas gun on the planet. Five rounds of love right there. And same thing, quickly walked it over to the sandbags and shot it again, actually breaking some of the ice off of it. And guys, zero shift at all. Did I throw it on the ground? No. I'll do that with my EOTech. I'll do that with my Glock. I'm not throwing this thing on the ground. It's just too pretty. And this is my new hunting scope. Do I believe it could take bumping on the helicopters, falling, getting out of the Humvees, tripping coming off the helicopter, face planting on the ground, snapping off nod mounts? Yeah, I believe this rifle could take it. All right, I'm pleasantly surprised by it. What about shooting it at night? You notice because of the length here, I had to actually take my front sight off because this is a short 12.5-inch barrel to mount my night vision scope. Guys, but I ran this thing, I ran it with Gen 3 clip-ons. I ran it with my clip-on Apollo thermal, and it runs great, it does. In conclusion, because I know this is a long video, all right, guys, this is a solid 1-to-8 variable power first focal plane. It's awesome. All right, it's got the mill grid that I want. I screamed at Dimitri, I want a mill grid, and he laughed at me because he said he already had it. Now, how about if you're a guy that don't like mills? How about if you like MOAs, minutes of angle? He's got a version of the Griffin that's in minutes of angle, so that's not a gripe. If you prefer MOAs, run that. All right. If you just like BDCs, go with the Raptor. But if you want the conjunction of them both, if you're a sniper, if you're a hunter, if you're a competitive shooter, guys, I recommend the Griffin. It's still Platinum Series, it's still tough. If you want one, all right, again, I mentioned it earlier, go to tacticalrifleman.com, go to the page that says companies we love, and you'll see our link to primary arms. You'll see the link for this scope. You go there, you click on the link, and you'll get this, it'll take you straight to the scope, and they'll throw in this exact same Aero Precision mount that I got with it. Guys, you just can't beat that. So anyways, guys, I've talked about this long enough. Let's go shoot it some more. You know the deal. Put your comments below. And I hope you enjoy this thing as much as I did. And I'll see y'all next time. Y'all take care. Shoot straight. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter so you don't miss out on anything.